Hi, it's Garrett Smith. Welcome to Connections. Let's see if we're on. I'm going to wait. Apologize for the technical difficulty. I know we're 10 minutes late now, and I'd like to say better late than never. And I think we're kind of getting that. Uh, Again, this is Garrett Smith with Concentric Industries. Welcome to the inaugural, not exactly smooth start, but we're here and we're on. And I want to open with a message here for everyone that I think will be important, an important consideration for all of us. And I'm going to wait and give everybody kind of a minute here to see who's going to join up and come to this event. I apologize. It's our first time. One thing, a little caveat here for all of us, we're not a multimedia company. We're a bricks and mortar company designing and building power plants and water treatment facilities, infrastructure we call eco infrastructure. And so this is a kind of a humble beginning of our first YouTube Connections with Concentric. And I know these will be recorded, I believe, so everyone can jump on that. Let me check real quick. Talita, are you able to get on there? Talita, are you there? Can you give me an answer to that? Are we live and on? Okay, good. All right, so we're moving. We've got Yosef, Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, right on. Good to see you, brother. Great. So we're going to kind of get going on this one. We've been wanting to do a podcast with interviews, other different media like that for quite some time. This is kind of our inauspicious way to begin that. Many of you know some of our history. We've been doing quite a few Google Meets. We still have one main one for the main internal of the company, but we also have been doing SpaceX's, Telegram, different things of that nature. And we'll get into some of the details. This will be kind of a cleanup and transition moment, but and it will be recorded, so this is good. But I want to convey a message to everyone, and this is kind of the opening of this, and it's exciting to be here. We like YouTube is kind of a universally accepted professional venue. We'll be responding to some of the questions. Why on YouTube no more experts? That'll be kind of give a couple minutes. I'll wait till quarter for the hour, so one more minute. I'll answer that. Why YouTube? We'll get that to that in this intro here in just a second. We think this is a more universal spot for us because, again, we're a bricks and mortar company. We're not a blockchain currency company. We're still very excited about the blockchain, but we kind of, I think, got some misrepresentation. We're a global company that's involved in things that everybody uses every day. We're in a great story of a comeback from the COVID lockdown and a bunch of other things that happened earlier this century. And we want people to know exactly who we are. Who we are is a company that's in the trenches, designing and building systems and running them that make clean energy, food, air, and water for all of humanity. And yes, we have absolutely come upon an amazing advancement in our business plan by adding a wonderful material called graphene, which has escalated already record-setting profits from our simple use of everyday fuels and waste in traditional power plants, using the waste heat and the waste emissions to make additional products, very simple technologies to improve that performance. Well, our latest upgrades to these systems involve the production of graphene as a byproduct. And those of you not familiar with graphene, I encourage you to do that. And you'll realize that graphene has thousands of times more profit margin than really any other product in the world today, or at least value. And it's a byproduct from our system. We're the first company in the world that can make it from everyday fuels and waste extremely profitably. And we think that makes a big difference. It's kind of like a powerful, packed economic engine coupled with the ethics we bring to the table. And one reason we shifted to, I'll have a prepared kind of talk here, but I want to be really clear. One reason we shifted to YouTube is that some of the other venues that we talk on are filled with people who are challenging our existence, challenging who we are, what we're doing, and just really kind of just some strange dynamics that are just laced with extreme cynicism. And we're not going to come down for that. It's too complicated because we have a lot vested in this. We're a real company. We've had real general contractor licenses for decades, and we build real plants. And sometimes people say, can you prove that? And it's like, if we showed you a picture, you say it's not real. If we bring you to the plant, it gets to a point where we're going to assume an attention span now, okay, and some intelligence to realize that you can't just fake your way into building power plants, okay? You can't hide those, and you can't say you did it and it's really not there, okay? So we're going to assume that, and I'm going to go to this speech now. It's quarter after. Welcome to Connections with Concentric, and welcome to our new home on YouTube. Same time, new venue. We're going to ramp this up permanently as a proactive podcast. Thank you all for your integrity to our credo, which is that all people deserve quality of life. For those of you who followed us across various platforms over the past couple of years, thank you. Your loyalty means everything. We've made a deliberate decision to build here on YouTube where we can have a real conversation in a professional environment, one that reflects the seriousness of what we're doing at Concentric. Like any organization doing meaningful work at the leading edge, we've attracted attention, and not all of it welcome. There have been bad actors on other platforms who've worked hard to misrepresent us, hijack our channels, and disrupt our community. We won't be naming them or debating them. That's not what this show is about. What this show is about is exactly what the late James Burke, or maybe he's not late. I saw some recent shows from the last few years. But what James Burke showed us, that everything connects, that ideas have consequences, and that the future belongs to people willing to think differently. So we're drawing a clean line. This is a new chapter, a permanent home, a place for serious conversation, serious guests, and a serious community. There's nothing more filled with love and more filled with adventure than the quest to make the world better. That's Concentric real, and that's real fun. If you're here to learn, engage, and grow, you are exactly who this was built for. So let's get into it. What is Concentric Industries? And some of you who are part of us know that we're a real bricks and mortar company. We really do own 24 patents, and they are not without controversy. And those patents involve the clean and efficient production of electricity, food, clean water, clean air, and advanced materials from everyday fuels and wastes. Coal, oil, garbage, sewage, livestock manure, scrap tires, things people don't really want, air pollution, carbon dioxide emissions. See, our philosophy is not just, the big buzzword is decarbonize. But see, here's our news flash. You can't decarbonize and stay alive, right? Carbon is essential to life. Our approach is recarbonize. How can we use carbon to its intended purpose and give us great benefit, and ecologically as well? Look at photosynthesis, right? Natural science, right? Carbon dioxide and water plus photon hitting chlorophyll produces carbohydrates and hydrocarbons, same thing, and oxygen. And so the core aspect of a lot of this is that we started, and we still are at our heart, a heavy industrial company. My personal background's in power generation, and my late father was a high voltage electrical engineer building power lines and substations. So I grew up around big business, big industry. And I think that's, again, where a lot of people get confused. And we're trying to rebrand this organization late to the public. I know earlier this century, I'd be at church or out at ball games with my, kids' sports, or out doing anything. And what do you do? Well, I'm an engineer. I build power plants and stuff. And instantly, down comes, hydropower, wind. Just people don't know. And say, no, we're using natural gas and combined heat and blah, blah, blah. And, it's just to lose people. Well, you know what? And I was even watching, again, great speech, Simon Sinek. If you've not seen it, go watch The Power of Why. Right? One of the, I think, still like the best-selling, most viewed TED Talk in YouTube history. An amazing speech. And he says, I codified what people do in this way that's extremely simple. And what does he say? See, most people know what you do, for work or career or anything. And then some people get into the details of optimizing how you do it. But what really matters is why you do it, doesn't it? What does he say in that over and over again? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Okay. And that resonated, no pun intended, the resonance to synchronize with things with Concentric, because everything that drives us is why. It's a vision to make the world better. And this is kind of a summary of the resonance talks, which you can download transcripts on our website. But see, the world has things confused. And I can speak from Western North America, where I'm from, right? It's still going on there. It's this jobs versus environment debate, right? Ecology versus economy, where if one, and it falls into the same mentality of the zero-sum game, right? Of colonialism. I was just talking to a great friend, Cheyenne, about this, and we're always going through these things, that you have this whole situation where it's that if one side wins, somebody else has to lose. But what if there's a worldview that says no? If you steward the resources properly and have love for your neighbor, so you want to do things right, all can gain some, right? And so here's what it boils down to for how we codified it. It took me years to do this. As a young man, I was excited about what I still love engineering. There's nothing that excites me more than synchronizing a generator and having pollution-free power generation, and all these intricate machineries that go into that. I love that. We're builders. I'm a builder. Okay. First and foremost, I think that still confuses people. Like, what is that? And we love to build and build things that last. Okay. We've just to get this out of the way, because we still ran into this. We've built over 100 combined heat and power plants and water treatment facilities throughout our career. 100% success rate. 100%. 100%. Every permit we've ever applied for, we've received. Unanimous success. And if you take 128 systems that we've done across the board, and not every one was first idea to finish. Sometimes most of it we get contracted by people to come in and build the plant someone else had envisioned need to be built, and then we apply our technologies. A lot of projects we got brought in as commissioning and tuning experts. Okay, and played a major role in commissioning or operations setup and different things. It's group efforts. If you look around in this industry with big projects, you have multiple people involved. But if you look at our pedigree, our thumbprint, and we have over 100 systems we've been a part of in that capacity in a substantial way, many of them start to finish, the whole ball of wax. That puts us in a world leadership position. But you know what? One of the challenges we've had in some of these other venues, people are, where's proof of that? Well, because that industry doesn't really work that way. We can show you proof. Here's a power plant over here. Our clients come and see them and say, we need to work with you, because they get that part of it. So, but if people aren't willing to come and see, it's hard. How do you take a picture of a power plant here? Do people said they want to see movies and videos of our plant? We have them online now, and we've sent them out. We're using marketing literature all the time for this stuff. But the problem is, what do you show people? Yeah, here's our power plant. Do you think you really see anything moving? No, it's motors and motor control centers and shrouds and conveyors over, and it's a safety issue. And these aren't really places where you have like family picnics and people are going to come take photographs. In fact, a lot of places don't allow photography and videos around power plants and things of this nature, because why? Well, one, it's their secured facilities. I mean, you can have, serious threats on them. And then another thing is just the old, the OSHA standards in America, Occupational and Health and Safety Administration. All you need is one photograph, and Bill over there doesn't have his safety glasses on, and the whole plant gets shut down, literally. So, it just becomes, why have the photographs? At best, it's a liability. Okay. And that's one of the things we're trying to change. Not that we're going to open up and, hey, have your kids come through a power plant and all this machinery. But part of it is we'd like to do that and show people how it works and how clean these are. Because air and water really can be cleaner coming out of power plants, factories, and farms. Really can be. And that's what our mantra is. That's what our ethos is. And we've proven that with technologies that do that. But what I'm ultimately getting at is that that's our core business. And we ran through some adversity earlier this century that culminated, like for a lot of other contractors, with the the COVID pandemic. And we have different views on that whole pandemic that we don't need to get into, but it shut the world down, shut a lot of contractors down. Most haven't come back. While the populations in the world grow, a lot of the contractors that were leaders in that have gone. Well, we came back and we revamped our business plan to be an owner-operator of the plants so we could make that decision and we could be there to stick around and be a part of these. And we saw the growth curve coming in the world with population growth. And frankly, it's the one thing we underestimated. I'll talk about that maybe more here in a minute or two. We're going to keep these to an hour as well. And just appreciate the opportunity to be here, and whoever can tune in is great. We're going to have guests and we're going to ramp this up as time goes on. We're going to definitely make this known, and I'm going to do a quick sound check here. Hey, Talita, can you check on see if my audio is loud enough to hear, see if that's okay. I hope it is. Again, we're kind of going through some of the tuning here. I'm kind of running this like we did with SpaceX's and everything else, and Telegram and different things. Just shoot, here kind of a home setting. It's Saturday night for me. I'm at my residence here in Tbilisi, Georgia. We're going to end up doing some of these more of a podcast. We'll have guests, those kind of things. So bear with us as we pick up our multimedia presence. This one I wanted to just be kind of like a at-home discussion where we're just explaining who we are and why some of the controversies of the other venues. And again, we're not here. We love everybody. Love overcomes evil, and we're here to help the whole human race have a better way of life. And so what we've done is we've developed technologies in the Hard Knock School of Engineering and Construction. That's our background. And we have a business model now that used to be to build these plants, engineering, procurement, construction, EPC it's called. And that's kind of feast or famine work. The clients raise the capital. We help them. They use our background as a reference point, and then we go in and build plants and do that. And we've been a part of, like I said, hundreds of projects that we've been involved in, 128 that we kind of claim as our own, that we had a major role in construction and engineering or commissioning or some major aspect of that. And a lot of them award winning, and a lot of them so old that it's kind of before the internet. So we're even trying to get some old records and different things. But the bottom line is this. The world needs electricity, the world needs water, the world needs food, the world needs clean air, oxygen. And what we have done throughout our history, and for me going back as a young man, even into the 1980s and early 90s, was working on some of these power plants, and there was always this problem. And it was a stack. It was air pollution, right? The byproduct of combustion, carbon dioxide. And I saw that early on, and we were doing a lot of work in California. In fact, California has been our number one client base, California and Texas probably. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon. The company was founded there. We still have our main headquarters up in Kelso, just north of Portland, on the way to Seattle, up Kelso, Longview. Awesome place, super amazing. Couple people on the board of directors there, some awesome partners. You know who you are. Thank you. We love the Pacific Northwest. It needs a lot of engagement of some accurate principles about resource stewardship, but the whole world does. And so we're kind of running headquarters out of there now. We have branch offices on 6 continents. Let me get to that right now. So we looked at this scenario where you have power emissions from a power plant. And that's why people want the power plant far away, central power station, right? Big power plant, coal, nuclear, whatever, get it out of the city, away from everyone. Well, what we looked at is said power plants, a thermal power plant, whether you use garbage, sewage, livestock manures, natural gas, coal, whatever, you have heat with it, right? That's how most original phase of plants worked, was you burn a fuel, make steam, run a steam turbine, right? It's called the Rankine cycle, the water vapor Rankine cycle. And you'd run the steam turbine that's rotating, generate electricity. Relatively inefficient process, and you have we always try to work on better methods of combustion, from a traveling grate boiler to fluidized bed, et cetera. But that's a relatively inefficient way to run a plant. Your heat transfer coefficients and everything, you have maybe 35% efficient, more like 30. A lot of the older, vintage projects around the world are in the mid 20s, for 20% efficient, 75% losses. And it goes to cooling towers and then out the stack. So you have all these losses. And I was there as a young man thinking there's got to be a better way. And the push was the permits, the regulatory licenses, right? Because you're getting, for compliance, you got to put in more scrubbers and you got to have cooling towers that hit this performance and, all this stuff with that. And I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of equipment here and a lot of loss just to comply with standards. What if we could use that? What if we could use the waste heat, go into a cooling tower and run an aquaponics system, right? Tony Dente, we can grow species of fish and then integrate that where their waste is fertilizer for food production. And folks like Kimball Musk came along and said, yeah, this is great, but the energy costs are high. And we said, yeah, great. We put it right next to our power plant and they're not high anymore. It's the most efficient place to put it. So all of a sudden we added food revenues in addition to power generation. And that was kind of the beginning of our breakthroughs, but it was also the beginning of our being ostracized because the power industry says, you can't have two revenues? Well, we said, you know what, we need more. So we looked at the carbon dioxide and I wrote an award-winning paper, and you can really look this up. You could go back to the records, whatever. It was the 1994 American Society of Mechanical Engineers contest for the ethics and professionalism contest. And the contest was to write an essay of, I forget if there was even a length requirement, and mine ended up being maybe a dozen pages. Nothing extraordinary, but it was succinct and everything. And this was back in 94, so there was no internet. I remember I had a couple graphics in it, figures and stuff, and I had to print them out and cut them with scissors and tape them on the thing and then redo the printout and then fax it in or whatever I did. There's no email. I mean, all this is old. Yeah, I think I faxed them in and crazy. I remember cutting and pasting, but my title of mine was called Acid Rain and the Emergence of Pollution Control Technologies. Because I was there in the field. We were doing a gas turbine plant at the time down in Central Florida that won Power Plant of the Year award. And natural gas fuel, super clean, but we still had scrubbers on the exhaust and stacks and CO2 emissions. And at that place, we were a zero discharge facility, but we also still had a cooling tower. They took all the wastewater, though, and drained that out. We had a calandria crystallizer, it was called, where we concentrated the brine wastewater and had a salt cake that left. And it was really cool. It won some neat awards, global Power Plant of the Year award. It was like, just an amazing opportunity. And that type of plant, it was two GE LM6000 gas turbines, is now kind of a global standard for what's called a combined cycle plant. And what that means is the fuel goes into the gas turbine or engine, any prime mover. Rudolf Diesel even said when he was developing the diesel engine, he said, there's got to be a better way to convert the fuel directly to a motion, electricity or mechanical propulsion or whatever, running a grinder, a conveyor, whatever, or electric generation. Because before that, it was you burn the fuel, you made steam. Back in James Watt day, it was a steam engine, piston cylinder. Then it became a steam turbine, a little more efficient. But still, it was like you were heating the fuel and then having to heat water. So you have these transfers. And every time you have that, you have some losses. So diesel does his work on the compression ignition cycle, right, with diesel fuel, which don't be confused. Sometimes there's so many neat things happen turn of the century. It was the 1900 World's Fair in Paris. And it was later when Tesla, right around the same time frame, I think he was 03 in Chicago. I could have my dates mixed up. But Tesla did the electric AC power running the lights at the Chicago World's Fair. Diesel was a few years before, and you can check the records. He ran his test engines and his global display of his diesel cycle on peanut oil. Because see, vegetable oils, oleic, stearic, and palmitic, the three main types, if you look at them compared to cetane, which is diesel, C16H34, those other three fatty acids that are commonplace in vegetables and animal tissue, they all are within one carbon atom of the same configuration, a long chain hydrocarbon. So it's amazing. So you can run those. It's why you see people esterifying grease from like French fries and turn it into biodiesel. It's real easy to do. It's the same compound, basically. In fact, a lot of it's just filtration, and then you add it with some additional, you put diesel in with some of that oil after you filter it, and that's really how you can make biodiesel. It's kind of a hybrid of it, putting it together. It's real simple. But so what he did, I want to look at this. I'm just going to real quick, because I always like to get dates right. I got to get this. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with that World's Fair was with peanut oil was, I'm going to say he was 1900 in Paris, and that Tesla was 1903 in Chicago. Let me just see what they're going to say. I'm Googling or whatever here. Yeah, 1900 Rudolf Diesel during the 1900 World's Fair. And then so Tesla, I'm going to say, my guess is he was 1903 in Chicago. It might be 1905 or 6. Again, let's see what it says. Tesla AC lighting, Paris World's Fair. And I'm taking a minute to do this because why some of this stuff matters, because these were the pioneers of the day in Chicago. See, and why that matters is because these are my heroes. These are the guys we've emulated. Because you know what they did? You know what all these people have done? You know what innovators do? And I'll get into some of our history. This will be like an inaugural episode. Oh, I'm sorry. I was off. In Chicago, 1893. Okay, I was wrong. In 1903, then Tesla wrote his book, or Diesel wrote his book, Solid Arithmetic. Okay, so I was off. I'm glad I looked it up. 1893, Tesla does the AC lighting at the Chicago World's Fair. 1900 was when Diesel over in Paris runs on peanut oil. And why I'm even going through some of this as a back history to get it right. Not that the dates matter, you know, it's the same era. I mean, it was right there in the same window of time. But here's why it's important. And it's a great lesson that so people just, you hear the phrase, push the envelope, think outside of the box, right? And if there's anything as a takeaway of what innovation really represents is this one moral that I think it was Steve Clevitt told me one time, a mentor of mine early on. Steve, I'd love to talk to you again. I've been trying to reach you since the COVID thing. Haven't talked to you in a few years. Hope you're doing well up there in New England. I think you were in New York or Massachusetts. I can't remember last time, but in New England. But Steve told me once, he said, you know, the whole moral of that story is that there is no box. Right? Get skills, get understanding. Like my late father would say, get the fundamentals and then apply them and just keep thinking of innovative ways you can apply sound scientific principles to make a difference. And that's what I did as a young man. I said, hey, this carbon dioxide, there's got to be a way to use it. There's got to be a way to do this. And even then, you know, it was the thing, you got this jobs versus environment debate, right? Across the Americas and around the world, that how can you be cleaner and more efficient? Right, the late great Buckminster Fuller said, you know, what's really awesome, you want to shift a paradigm, just annihilate it by bringing in something way better. And that's what we bring. And we're not ashamed of it. It's something that's cleaner and more profitable at the same time. Okay. And I'm going to get into why even the shift to YouTube, not to criticize anybody, but I'm going to tell you a little bit of that history here. And we got 20 minutes left for the hour. So I'm just going to go. And I appreciate some of the hi to people. We got a few listeners. That's good. You know, I didn't know how many we'd have. It's all good. You know, we are who we are. These are all the extras. See, what we want to convey is that, see, we represent an industries, electricity, power generation, heavy industry, where you don't really get a lot of interaction, right? Look globally in our lifetime. Who are the big infrastructure people? China, people just say China's building, China. Well, who is that? There's individuals. We're trying to meet you Chinese people who are doing cool things. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't all have to be us versus them and this, they are doing stuff. I mean, people innovate. I can tell you this, that what we see in China, not a whole lot of innovation. They're streamlining manufacturing. You know, they're building a lot more of these, you know, streamlined factories to mass produce things and get an economic advantage. What was that? I just saw a thing on BYD, Build Your Dream, right? The electric car company kind of dominates the industry now. And the word was, well, the Chinese government subsidized all of it. So they did this, no taxes, whatever. You know, and it's like, I remember seeing, okay, Jocko, thank you. I'm cut off. No, I think I'm live still here. I saw a note from Jocko. Talita, can you check and see if I'm still on? I just got a note said I'm not on, but my live stream is still going. So I'm gonna just keep going here. Basically, where was I there? Okay, thanks, Jocko. Appreciate it. here's where was I there with that? I was talking about the being cleaner and more profitable, kind of shattering the paradigm. No problem, buddy. Thanks for the heads up. I'm just looking at my cues here. It looks pretty solid on this end. And this is good. We're experimenting. We're going to have these first class polished. I know there's a lot of people in our company. You guys are experts in video production. We can do more of a thing here with, more of a professional approach to all this. And we'll get some, background lighting and do it. We got groups we support even philanthropically that we're trying to support that do some great promotions, and we're going to do that. So this is kind of an intro, and what you get is me kind of in the live feed, and it's cool. And this is kind of a background story, and we'll try to get some themes going with these connections because everything is connected. And so as I go forward in that storyline is in our space with energy, food, air, and water production, you don't get a lot of branding. People aren't household words. Everybody wants to flip that switch, and y'all curse the utility when you pay your bill, right? Or your water bills do, or the water quality. It's mostly negative of like, it's too expensive. Utilities are too expensive, but I need them. And then it's not good. Power's not reliable. Water's not clean. Food shortages, it's like, and they're just fighting. If you look at this back to the whole thing of the how and what and why, ultimately that circle, the golden circle with Simon Sinek, is you have this situation where what goes on with energy, food, air, and water, right? If you're an energy producer, you're just bad because you're using up water and you're polluting the air, right? If you're a farmer and rancher, you're a bad guy because you're sending nitrates to the liquid and you're bad with animals, and it's just you got manure and waste if it's a dairy farm or steer. It's just negative, but bad for the water. And then if you're in the water industry, you just hate everybody else because they're just polluting the water. And we're sitting here and we're saying, man, there's not enough clean water and just what's going on. And then air pollution, right there, people dying all over the world, and it's power plants, it's industry. And you see pictures and they'll say the smokestacks, and a lot of them just show cooling towers. People, it doesn't even, which are just fog machines. If it's cold enough, that hot air is going to condense and form a cloud. There's been accidents happen, like in the highways in between Tennessee and Georgia, catastrophic stuff. We're just wasting thermal energy. And then a lot of people come in and say, industry's bad. We need to stop consuming. Well, is that really the answer? I love Alex Epstein, Fossil Future and the moral case for fossil fuels. Because people say, oh, be organic farmer. Well, here's the deal. Fossil fuels are organic, right? Carbon. What are we going to do with them? You saw, if you haven't seen it, the cool book and movie, The Martian. Matt Damon plays the guy, and he's up there, and he's trying to grow. He had potatoes in the bag. He's trying to grow more food up there because he's by himself. He puts them in there, and what do you need to grow anything? You need water and carbon dioxide, right? Think about it, the byproducts of combustion. So he's like, what am I going to do to get that? Well, he's got some extra solid rocket booster fuel, right? That he brings in, and at first his settings on, he burns too much, almost blows himself up. Remember in the movie, it's kind of funny, but eventually he gets it tuned in, and he's got the tarps around it. So the moisture from combustion and then the carbon dioxide and the potatoes grow, right? I mean, that's how things work. It's a biological process, botany. So we've integrated the mechanical engineering part of thermodynamics with botany, and then we come along, fast forward into our company. So we got these byproducts. I got the waste heat going to aquaponics, fish and crops. The CO2 can come in, and what happens with it? Carbon dioxide plus water plus a photon of light and chlorophyll produces carbohydrates, C6H6O6, like what am I trying to say? Hydrocarbons, carbohydrates, sugar, glucose, right? It's a nominal one. And every plant grows something a little different, but it's basically a form of a carbohydrate. So looking at that, power plant emissions are a source of that. And God bless Sam Shepard and there's other companies doing it all over the world. It's not complicated. It just takes a footprint, some equipment. That's the reality test to grow what? The best, most efficient, streamlined material to grow with its stemless and rootless is algae, algoid biomasses. And they're an amazing material. All over the world, they're grown all the time. Too much of it, you get eutrophication, right? It robs all the oxygen out, the BOD and COD, and you got nitrates in. But if you can control that and harness it, right? Like even Neil Peart, the late Neil Peart, and you guys know I'm a fan of his. Great writer, great reader. And he wrote this great line in the song Natural Science. Science, like nature, must also be tamed with a view toward its preservation. Given the same state of integrity, it will surely serve us well. That inspired me as a young man. I thought I've got a responsibility. That's what I wrote about in that paper with the acid rain issues. We have a responsibility to come up with answers. And if you don't know the answers, do the research and figure it out. Go find a better way. See, I said it's the why. I said, and I'm going to loop in on this again. My why became to get air and water cleaner coming out of power plants, factories, and farms than going in. And then what happened? We've done that. We got the algae biomass from flue gases, the heat going. We did a triptych. The impressionist paintings of that. You can see those online. Did some art for sale, NFTs, our first segue into that. And I'll mention cryptocurrency in a second here. Got about 12 minutes left. But basically what it is that's what we do, right? Capturing flue gases, using the waste heat to create multiple revenue streams. Polymathism, right? Multiple skills. And it's amazing to me how much that gets bitterly opposed. People in the power sector, you can't do that. It's multiple revenue streams. We can't afford not to do it, right? Most of the technologies, all of the technologies Concentric's representing are the latest, most advanced ways, the most clean and profitable methods ever for generating electricity, food, air, and water. And we get a lot of criticism for it. And we walked into a trap. I'll just say that. We own it. We did this to ourselves. And we thought we could, coming out of COVID, we need to raise money because we took an own-operate role in these plants now. Because historically, our biggest competitor is to do nothing. And doing nothing is not going to fly. If you look at the hockey stick position we are in human growth right now, the metrics are we need as much food in the next 3 decades as the prior 3 millennia. That's right. In the next 30 years, the human race, Daniel Woodruff, awesome guy on our board, a doctor, he reminds me, not just food, but nutrition, right? Not just fillers, real nutrition. In the next 3 decades is the prior 3 millennia. Okay? Show me any method anywhere in the world right now that has even the potential to be 50 to 100 times more efficient for food production. And then we can talk. And do you know what? There's one entity in the world standing in that circle, and it's us. And we take heat for it day after day after day, and it's called aquaponics because you grow 50 times more food using 95% less land or water, and that's a meal ticket for the human race, and we're not going to apologize for it. Okay? We've got the technology. What is it? Integrating heat recovery with power plants. Super easy, super simple. Needs a footprint, but instead of, again, you got power plants that have waste lagoons for all their emissions and stuff, ash and all this stuff. We don't have that because we've also forecasted came through. Instead of burning the waste, we heat it electrically without oxygen. And the byproduct becomes this graphene. We'll have a whole show on that next time or something. But the bottom line is we have multiple revenue streams out, 5, 6, 7 revenue streams, and no pollution. We capture everything and convert it. And people call that crazy and lunatic and what's he talking about? But listen to this. The next part is we also need as much electricity in the next 20 to 30 years as it's ever been generated in the last roughly 300, back Michael Faraday, right? 1821 and 1831. It's when he discovered the principles of, really, it's called electric induction, that rotating a current carrying conductor in a magnetic field would generate a current, or putting a current into a conductor in a magnetic field would generate motion, right? Motors and generators, same principles. Great inventor. I love Michael Faraday too. A guy who just said there is no box. He's self-educated. Humphrey Davy gave him a position at the Royal Society. He said, here, come be a lab technician, whatever. And then he's discovering stuff is phenomenal. He was a chemist, really. His chemistry, it's just, it boils down to that. So here's what happened. We as a company set out to do this. We got proven plants, award winners, everything. Last decade, we didn't protect ourselves on some intellectual property, kind of got sabotaged in a big way. Big deal. This is all drama. People have written, there's a screenplay on it, everything else. People want to say, hey, this, that, and the other thing and stuff. You know what? The story is, it's one of those great heroic stories that we're living. People get sabotaged. You got something good, somebody comes after you. Same old story. People say, oh, these days, wars, rumors, wars. Hey, if you believe in that book, Cain killed Abel, okay? There's been strife from the beginning. It's nothing new. We just are learning the hard way to protect yourself. What are you going to do? Well, our protection, and this is Concentric's initiative, is to get as many of these plants out up and running for the rest of the world, give these technologies away so the world's blessed by them. And that's the solution. And that's how we're going to create fabulous wealth. We're talking to every continent. So what we did is we set out, and COVID was kind of the nail in the coffin for a lot of contractors, anybody building anything. I've said before, if everybody can work from home, like a lot of people did through COVID, so no problem, just work from home. If everyone in a society works from home, that society's doomed for failure because somebody's got to make something, whether it's food, streets, roads, bricks and mortar, electricity, whatever. There's got to be something going on. Let's get real, folks. And so that's what we've done. So we retooled our business plan, said, let's go out and be an owner operator. Let's go global. And what's happened in the last couple of years, really since 2023, 2.5 years, we've come out and gone internationally. We have branch offices on 6 continents now, and we're scrambling to catch up with the finance part of our business model. And that's all I'm going to say regarding the blockchain is we thought we'd find some people thinking outside of the box, or that there's no box in the blockchain, right? Because what is blockchain economics? And I've said this, but we've talked to a blue in the face. We're not going to make this a cryptocurrency deal or whatever, but what is it? It's money without government intrusion or borders, borderless money that's backed by, because what is money? Consensus, right? And if enough people just believe something's worthwhile, then you can trade by it. It doesn't have to be backed by a government. In fact, you pay penalties for that sometimes. And there's security in it, but there's also a cost. Everything's pro and con. So what something like Bitcoin did is prove consensus is all that matters. The digital world is there. We're already doing electronic banking, with ATM cards and codes and everything else. So why not keep it simple with lower fees, lower transactions? And you saw the sequence, Bitcoin, Ethereum got written in a more efficient language, right? With Vitalik Buterin and Gavin Wood, they're putting it together in what's the language? Solidity. Right, to make it faster. And then Solana comes around and the language Rust and the programmers there making it really fast and doing this. And the big thing we saw as we analyzed this was that leaders in the industry saying what they need is real bricks and mortar companies coming on the blockchain. And we love that idea. And we saw the decentralized autonomous organization with our satellite of projects all around the world. It's a perfect fit. And I take ownership for what happened is we've gone out in the blockchain space where we've even had Spaces and some of these other things, Telegram, but it all became about these dividends, because it's written in our smart contract and we fully intend, it's built into our business model to give dividends back to stakeholders. That's the old 100 years ago. That's how the stock market built. We brought that into this. People said, nobody's done that. When are you going to do it? When are the dividends? We said, as soon as we get funded and we're raising capital the old analog way, which is a pain in the arse. I'm telling you, you want to go out with great solutions in the world. We're not victims. We get to do this. And I'm telling you right now, go have some great solutions of ways that are cleaner and enormously more profitable than any other way to do that. And you go raise capital for it, give us a call. Because the people who are getting the venture money out in the world today don't have any real stuff going on. Very few of them. Okay, they just get money to have staff, and most of the public funds go in so that 88 people can get their salaries and think about it and do due diligence studies. We are bricks and mortar. We stand in there. And so a lot of people say, you're proven and profitable. You don't need grants and this other money. And then other people say you don't have a balance sheet anymore, meaning we don't have cash. We ran out of money. Work stopped. So what? We can go back and find more. We thought we would find a really energetic, positive place within the blockchain environment, and we didn't. And we accept the fact that we didn't. And that's why we're here kind of on this channel, because this fits into the whole story. We are raising capital. We're finally meeting some people. Talked to a guy today who's Brown University. I'm going to shout your name out. I don't know if you'll ever hear this. Joe Banda. Great meeting you today. Just a guy who gets it, okay? And that we're in this no man's land where we're not a startup, 40-year-old startup, but we're also not, we don't have cash flows because we had to start over. And we revamped with a better business model, whereas we get financing and put projects in place now, we recoup the profits and stakeholders recoup the profits and dividends and profits come out of that. The old school way, except with new materials and new innovative ways of doing things. And I'm going to close with this. We got about 4 minutes left. we've met this past couple months. I'm in Tbilisi, Georgia now, up in the Silk Road. I'm going to end talking about the Silk Road right now. Talita and I were invited to be delegates at the Silk Road Forum up here in Tbilisi last fall. And we've not left here since. We spent most of last year in Muscat, Oman. We got amazing partners down there building this up, and Godspeed to everybody regarding these conflicts. We love people in Iran, Yemen, all these places. There's some amazing people, and we're trying to find peace and plenty, right? Let's resolve poverty and then give people a chance to live a better life and resolve some of those conflicts. And we're in the trenches doing that. But here's the Silk Road's amazing. And I'm going to use this as like a story. And we're talking to Africa, Southeast Asia, everything. I've got just a couple minutes left. I started late, so maybe I'll go 10 minutes late, I guess. Yeah, in fact, I'm looking at my clock time, so 15 minutes, okay? And you guys know me. I can talk about this stuff all day because here's what it boils down to. I'll leave the Silk Road thing for in a moment. I want to key back to the Simon Sinek thing because what we do, energy, food, air, water, how we do it with the best toolkit of technologies ever in the history of the human race to do it. Those are all really important. But I realized a long time ago, and Simon put it in great terms, is that still doesn't matter. And so what we're trying to tell people is why we do it. Because we can make energy, food, air, water, and right, material science is really energy compressed, to use it. So graphene really falls in that scope. Okay, so we got this great way and we make all kinds of profits and and the cash flows are huge. You can see the numbers. When you have a byproduct from making electricity that's worth 1,000 times more than the electricity at even its lowest commercial rate, you don't have to do wizardry math to realize you're onto something, okay? And so at the same time, what we developed, and it didn't take long, because in fact, you know what, I'm going to even say it this way, and this is on the opening of the you can find on our site the transcripts of it, and we're going to upgrade some TED Talks and all this other, I'm 57 now. And so I've been around, I was telling some of our cool partner of mine, I didn't realize he's younger than some of my sons. We have 4 boys and, they're 30s and 20s, and shout out to them. I love guys, Ben, Nathan, Sam, and Paul, amazing people. I mean, it's just such a blessing. And, this last decade, 15 years has been hard because I'm out at the forefront. Sometimes when you're at the front end of a ship and you're at the bow and you're like the battering ram cap, and you're like, bring it on, and you're hitting the icebreaker, everything. It's amazing. And then when you have the open seas and you can see the clear sky and you're the one out in front to see it, it's worth it. But some of those moments are tough. And that's how you get your mettle together and you figure out, is your why big enough? Right? You see, it says man without vision will perish, right? Is the proverb. It also means man with vision will thrive. It means man with a why will go through what and how, whatever it takes to get to that vision. And this was our vision. This is the why that makes us tick. And then I'll close with, I'll come back to the why. 10 minutes here showing. I'm trying to think, I'm going to close with the why. Let me go back and give a quick recap on the, so that sets the table of the why. So I'll leave it with this for just a couple minutes, is the foursome, energy, food, air, water. Got to have those, essential to life on Earth. Everybody agrees, say, raise your hand. So the why is also a foursome, and I'll get to that. And part of it was this. In fact, I'll get to real quick on Silk Road. I got 12 minutes, plenty of time. Silk Road, awesome, right? Going way back to Kublai Khan days, Genghis Khan, Marco Polo, all across Central Asia. If you haven't read it, go find Parag Khanna's book, The Future is Asian. He says those who develop new business models and technologies are going to be those who will prosper in the future the future is Asian. And in it, he talks about the Silk Road, the new Silk Roads, and we're just honored to be here. Formidable people. Georgia, Sakartvelo, amazing heritage here. Azerbaijan, incredible stuff they're doing. Then you go across, and I'm going to leave some out here. I mean, there's, Uzbekistan and Tashkent and everything. My late brother was there. In fact, a lot of this was his vision of get over here to the Silk Road if you're going to bring this, and it's the why. And this will segue into that. Kazakhstan. What an amazing longest land border in the world, Kazakhstan and Russia. It goes from the Caspian Sea all the way to China. Okay, it really does. It goes right China, right at the tip of where it touches Mongolia. It's funny. I just found out recently there's like a 20-kilometer gap between Kazakhstan and Mongolia, two really big countries, and then Russia and China border between them, and they isolated the two, so they're not really connected. Kind of just a weird, quirky thing. But up in the Altai Mountains, way out in Central Asia. So then you got Mongolia, huge coal fields there. We made great proposals to both of them, huge heritage. We just love those people. And we were up at the, Toledo and I were up at the embassy here in Georgia just yesterday and talking, saying, hey, you guys are in the driver's seat, because their president just issued a cruelty, which is their mandate to say, we're gonna go ahead and put some coal plants in and power up some data centers up in Astana, the capital. And Parag Khanna had talked a lot about that. Well, guess who has the only method in the world that transforms coal into electricity and other usable products with no pollution? Us. Billions of dollars worth of work. And this is stuff we've done. We've done $1 billion, old school coal methods. We were part of the commissioning team for the very last coal project built in the United States in Richmond, Virginia. This would have been, oh boy, I was there with Mike and Keith. That would have been what, 98 maybe? I'd have to go back and look at the records. I mean, this is a long time ago, almost 30 years. But so we're a part of these industries and we see better ways of doing it. So we make this proposal, and we got financiers out of Singapore saying, hey, we'll bring in 90% of the funding, guaranteed with Allianz Insurance. We'll guarantee the 10%, pull the deal together with all this stuff. And we're right in the middle of these things, selling them. And it's exciting and invigorating. And we're trying to tell the world we have answers to some of these problems. And we've got these great designs. And we've done millions of dollars in engineering design for countries all over the world. Some of you have seen them. We're starting to publish them more and more. We've developed optimized solutions for half the world now. There's 192 countries. We just topped over 100 of the nations in the world. We've done deep engineering review, resource policy optimization, and we're starting to put out our portfolio on a map now, where you can click on the map on a PDF file. We're still kind of old school, and see the design and development that's gone into that. We've got over 100 nations in the world, over $1 trillion of work on our books. And some people come in and say, what are you talking about all these numbers? It's the human race, people, and we're going up over 8 billion people. Electricity, food, air, and water are $1 trillion industries. And if you're involved in developing those things with advanced technologies, it's big business, right? Rush, the big money. And a lot of people think that means one guy like me or some gets the money and we're going to raise it in, whatever. That's not how the world works. It's nations and countries and leaders coming together to say, let's do it better. Or not, right? We see a lot of that where people are like, we don't know what we're doing. People dying in landfills. Recently in Jakarta, last year in Kampala, Uganda. Not long before that, up in Addis Ababa. It's going on in Manila. It's crazy. And who's crazy? We're talking about life and more abundant. We got pollution-free ways to deal with all this just by harnessing carbon to recarbonize. So here's what it comes down to. So we've had this big, powerful what we do, and a really precise, like dialed in, patented, world leading, cutting edge in the school of hard knocks down in the trenches, how we do it. Our sciences are awesome. The Dariel 360 patent, it's published on the website through the Paris Convention. So where's the USPTO record? The USPTO worked with people to try to steal our stuff. We don't care. We're not looking back. We're just saying we're migrating our IP to the Paris Convention of 1883, which gives us international security. Is that easy and cheap? No. It's a slog, but we're protecting it for the world so we can give it away internationally. And this is a way we can take every kind of carbon, fuel, and waste and put it into our system, whether it's gas, liquid, or solid, and come out with all these products, no pollution, and graphene. It's major wonder material. That's how we do it. But you get into the why. And this is one thing I said. I got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to kind of give a recap. This is sort of verbatim out of my talk one, the TED Talk series of the resonance. It's really a 0, 1, 2, and 3, kind of like Ted Dekker books, the trilogy, and then he had book 0 that made full circle. We have an introduction to the resonance that was in July 31 of, I think it was 2019, maybe 27. I got to go back and look at my record. In fact, while I'm talking, I'll do that. So we make that introduction to that. We had some certificates at that talk. In fact, I opened that talk. I'll tell you exactly when it was. I got a minute here, so I'm not losing too much time. It was, I dated mine just a second. I kept one. Yeah, I've got 6 of 32 prophetic about, July 31, 2019 was when I introduced the resonance. And my opening line to it says, within a decade, 4 billion people are going to know about this talk. And I told the group, I was at a Toastmasters session, that you're going to be able to say you were here. And I love those guys. In fact, one of them is going to be calling me here before the night's over from back in Washington. But Cougar Henderson, I love you, brother. So with that, we issue this resonance. And in that opening talk, or 1, 0 was the intro, 1, I did this thing where I said, hey, stay with me now, because I'm over 50 years old. So I remember when I was a child, and some of you in America will remember this, and this will date me and put a timestamp. And I'm going to finish this story and get into that ultimate why of Simon Sinek, and I'll tell you what the backbone of Concentric is and why we're as solid as we are and why it's inevitable. But I said to people, I remember when I was a kid in America, and I'd see, I'd be watching Marlon Perkins' Mutual of Omaha or Jacques Cousteau, Undersea World, or some other cartoon or something on a weekend, and there were 4 channels, whatever. And there'd be an ad come on and say, and you'd see the children in Africa, and they'd show them, they say they're starving, and they're too famished, their stomachs are distended and bloated, and they're too famished to swat the fly off their face. And you're just watching it going, man, this is just not right. As a boy, I'm looking at other children thinking, that's not right. And the announcer saying, $20 a month would, make a difference in this many kids' lives. And I'd hear that, and, my parents probably would chip in some money, and give to charities and try to support that, save the children, different ministries and stuff going on. But then as I got to be an adult and I was, 45, 50 years old now, I see the same ads, except it's even in America, the kids. And in my brain, it says, you know what, this is a clue. It's not working. Right? This is what gets me because I'll just lay it out. This is just heartfelt stuff. All that I've talked to you about tonight backs up. It's good, sound science, okay? I have a professional engineering license in mechanical engineering. I'm really good at it. I've been good at it from when I studied. I learned from the best. Dwight Bushnell from Sweden, amazing. I mean, the heartfelt, we named Bushnell Thermodynamic is one of the patents named after him. Because the guy was just on it, and he was diligent about it and hard. And you got to have discipline if you're going to make things more efficient. You got to apply that standard to your life and the way you do things. And so I looked at this with these children and said, it's not working. And see, a lot of people say Concentric's this, that, and the other thing. You know what, world? It's not working. Look at the waste. Look at the pollution. Look at what's going on. And you know what? You've got a tsunami coming that's not 10 meters high or 100. It's kilometers high. It's like nothing this human race has ever seen. And we're out in front of it and riding on top of it with answers to these problems. Because I said to myself then, how much would it take? What would it take to solve these problems of hunger and dehydration? And as John Perkins said in Confessions of an Economic Hitman, another big one is women's health, infant mortality issues, babies who need health care. So you put those things together, and in his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that the first one published, I think is about 05 or 06, maybe 09, something, about 20 years ago, he comes and he quantified it. And he said at the time it was like, I think it was like $500 billion a year would cover those costs, again, theoretically, because you got conflicts, whatever, but that would do it. And for me right then, I remember reading that, and a vision was quantified. And I said, now how am I going to build a business that can have $500 billion a year extra revenues to go fight that? And first thing was, well, why don't you fight those problems with the business, right? Do a business that makes energy, food, air, and water to build health, right? Health, medicine, and justice, our philanthropic arm, Kairos, right? Daniel and Talita and all of you, that's what we're about, is trying to solve those problems. And what if you could build a business that then the tsunami effect, your business itself solves problems and the profits kick back in to do it more and more? There's never been a business like this ever in human history. It's not about making a widget or selling software and then contributing to these problems. It's about facing them head on, fighting the problems, and taking the profits to fight them more. And so when people get in my kitchen and say, well, this, that, and the other, and how's this going on, stuff, you know what? It's like, it doesn't even matter, because you don't know how big a person's vision is, the why that Simon Sinek talked about. And I'll tell you what it is for us. Because right then I said the vision was quantified. Well, you do inflationary numbers and stuff. You're talking, say $1 trillion a year is what it would take to fight some of these challenges. Well, if you look at the numbers within our business plan, if we're earning a couple 100% ROI on an investment, we currently have $1 trillion in our pipeline of capital expenditure that's going to earn several trillion a year in net operating earnings. Guess what? We can go after that problem. And I'm right here on YouTube. You can quote me on it. We're going after hunger, dehydration, human slavery, right? All these sinister problems that just are destroying life on Earth. We're going right after them. Okay, here's the why. And we codified it. I love how he said that too. I'm going to wrap up on this. Because for us, I mentioned the 4 of how and what we do. And it's awesome what we have as technologies, and they're proven. We've done it. It's integrating it all. It's like building an automobile now with tires and transmission. Just put it together and we're ready to roll. And we've done it. Now it's just going to be even better. Energy, food, air, water. That's what and how we do it. But why? Our why is economic, ecological, social, and spiritual. You have to have economic prosperity. You got to make money. So many people think you're going to solve the world with nonprofits that just go help the whatever. No, let's have real businesses that make a lot of money and have an ethical backbone and put it back in and build up prosperity. It is possible. I know it's possible because it's in our heart, and that's what we're doing. Second thing, though, is ecological. You got to be sustainable. You can't just destroy the environment and expect it. And the problem is people think you can't have both. Well, we do both. Buckminster Fuller, how to shatter that paradigm, be cleaner and more profitable at the same time. And then you get into the real nitty gritty, is the social issues. See, this is the bottom line too, that some people don't have, all the social things that go on, racial, religious, racism, all these persecutions, they're all stupid. Okay. The fighting that goes on over nonsense. One of my favorite songs of all time. There's been great reggae versions, and I love it. It's by The Police. Stuart Copeland's percussion on it's awesome. It was that old album. I was in high school then. No, I think even grade school. Ghost in the Machine, a song called One World Is Enough. The lyrics are phenomenal. It's amazing. It's true if you take care of things. And then that spiritual aspect too. People have spiritual freedom, so they're not forced to think a certain way. They can think with their own minds, feel with their own hearts. That was a great, I'll end in this. Albert Einstein, one of my all-time heroes. Maybe another story. I got to meet Max Goldberger, one of his contemporaries, far younger than Albert, but he was a Holocaust survivor. And I met Max. He called me up in Hawaii. I was doing work in Hawaii on the Big Island. Max was a professor emeritus at University of Hawaii Hilo doing work in Jatropha, energy crop fuels. And he got a hold of me. He said, I know what you're doing in Hawaii. I'd like to talk to you. I got some things to share with you. And 2 of our patents in geothermal and the Calyx patent for refining lithium came from that discussion that day. And one of the greatest tributes I ever had. Max came to me. It was a wonderful day I spent with him, a couple days during that time. But the first day went up and it was cool. He brought me into his office at UH Hilo, and right on his desk was a picture of him and Albert Einstein. And I was kind of staring at it like one person removed now. He goes, oh yeah, Al was crazy and whatever, up at Princeton and stuff. But it was cool because he came to me, he said, Albert said that there'd be a guy who would understand what one of Einstein's ideas was about some of these sciences he shared with me that are in those 2 patents, but they didn't have the metallurgy of the day. And Einstein was getting old enough, and it was way after the stuff with the Manhattan Project and whatever, and it was just some other things of that nature regarding geothermal temperature issues, and then the chemistry behind it, because Max had invented solid rocket fuel, so it had some organic chemistry. And he shared some things with me. He said, "You're the guy. Like, we see the work you're doing." It was one of the greatest tributes I ever had. Max he passed away shortly after that. His son was there with us then, and down in Los Angeles, where they took him home when he passed. And before he passed, they knew he was getting ill. So he's a stakeholder in those patents. I made sure his family would get credited. But Albert Einstein I used to have a poster up in college, and I loved it. And I'll end in this. And I encourage all of you to take this seriously, because you all have a choice. Right? No matter anybody, you always have a choice. And Albert Einstein had a great quote. And it was right up there on my wall for a long time. And he said, "Few is the number of them that think with their own minds and feel with their own hearts." Few is, Kevin Reardon, few is the number of them that think with their own minds and feel with their own hearts. So think for yourself, feel for yourself, check out what we're about. And thank you for the inaugural episode. I know it was a rough start beginning. We're going to be more polished. We'll kind of phase into this. We're kind of new to it. I'm always glad to share. You guys know how to reach me through this channel any other way. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and Godspeed to all of us. Good night.